Patch 25.08, this is the last patch of Split 1. The next 25.09 will release on 29th of April, which means there will be a new split. Rank progression will not be resetted, but rank reward mission will be refreshed, however. Okay, so these are going to be the changes. We're going to run all of these. We're going to begin with Ahri. She's been really broken with the new and upcoming Fever Roa build, and they want to make some adjustments so that they can buff the Malignus slash Blackfire Torch build and nerf systematically the Rod of Ages build. I do have a hot take when it comes to this because, okay, first let's look into the changes. It's going to be less 9 armor by level 18, it doesn't really do that much. Damage is going to drop by 5 flat, and it's going to be increased by 10% AP ratio. Going to drop in base damage, but also going to increase in AP ratio, and cooldown is going to be increased by 1 second in every rank. When it comes to the charm value, it's going to go up by 10%, so 75 into 85, no base damage nerf, which means Malignus and Blackfire Torch build will be a lot stronger. If you go with Rod of Ages, you will still feel some potential damage. You will still deal some reliable damage, but it won't be as much as before because now you have more scaling values, which means Rod of Ages having less AP, it will affect you more. So it will be fine. I do think that building Rod of Ages, Leandris and Riftmaker is Omega broken. There should be some kind of restriction when it comes to the junction or the mixture of those three items together, altogether. But yeah, Ahri will possibly go back into Malignus and sometimes into Blackfire Torch unless Rod of Ages gives her the safety or the stability that she needs during those early to mid game stages. She's going to also receive some changes, so her health growth is going to be decreased by 6. The Q damage is going up when it comes to flat value by 10 at level 1 and plus 5% AP. W is also going up when it comes to base damage, not at level 1, but throughout the levels it's going to increase by 5, 10, 15, and then 25. And the AP value in percentage is going to be the same. Cooldown is going to be decreased by 1 second. Tibbers is going to be nerfed as far as I believe in some stats, but they will provide that Tibbers gives 10 to 12.5 at level 11 and 15% at level 16, which means that this Flame Aura is now going to deal less damage. Okay, the Flame Aura is going to be lessened by a lot. So instead of 20, it's going to be 8 at level 6, and then the percentage AP is going down to 4% AP. Basically, we're not going to care about this, and Tibbers auto attack damage is now going to be heavily decreased as well. So the DPS from the Tibbers is going down a lot when it comes to burst value because of the bonus magic penetration and all of these increases. Now Annie will be more of a burst type as she was before, instead of being so reliable on having link extended fights with Tibbers going around, which is going to be less reliable in comparison to before. Blitzcrank is going to have a bigger shield now, so 35% of max mana instead of 30% as before, and the rocket grab is going to be increased by 5 at level 1, as if I'm understanding correctly, and then increased by 10, 15, 20 and 25 respectively without anything being buffed, but this is a nice buff to Blitz. I'm not sure if the damage is more than I think it is. I don't think it's 105, but in case it's a buff, it's fine. Blitz is really niche in some kind of compositions, against enchanters, against Thresh, for example, not against frontliners usually. But yeah, Blitz should be showing more often. I would say 0.5% win rate increase. Same goes to Brand. Now he should be more reliable because he's been back-to-back buffed throughout these last weeks. So I'm going to assume that Brand will be in a better spot. The clear speed is going to be quicker, which means if the clear speed is quicker, then most of his issues are essentially solved. Yes, it will increase in popularity. I would say 0.5 to 1% win rate at best, which is going to shift Brand into a better spot. On-hit damage from Gwen is going to be decreased by 4 at level 1. People were abusing this, and rightfully it's going to be nerfed. When it goes to rank 5, it goes back to the same, but you don't really max his ability first, so even though It is 12 to 8. Yeah, laning phase, you will feel this more often, and she had a really strong laning phase because of the recent changes that Riot wanted to implement. So this will tune down the priority that Gwen has been given in the last patches as well. Wait, passive damage increased, our damage increased. So passive damage is going up by 5 initially and then going up by 50 at level 18. This is huge buff, even though the 30% AP is going to be untouched. This is huge buff. And explosion damage is going to be increased as well, but by level 11 and level 16. Now, about these values, we don't really care much. We would care if the level 6 value would be, increase, and that could give some more potential. This we do care, but it's only 25 plus 50, but the passive damage you can spam it the entire time. And Hwei is a really good champion to pressure early to mid game, but in late game it would be a bit weird, a bit awkward for most Hwei users to transition into those later game stages. So they want to make Hwei late game feel better, and this is the step into the right direction. However, this is a big buff. This should be more than 1% win rate for Hwei. Lulu, they want to drop it by 1% more, so minus 30 HP. This is essentially for high elo, I would say, because minus 30 HP is usually what Riot does to champions that they want to drop by 1% win rate and make them more vulnerable during laning phase. That's basically the entire reasoning behind it. Now the same reason goes to Mel. They want to increase Mel by 1% win rate and a bit more because of these changes. So it's going to be 1.1 to 1.5, maybe 2% because of this quality of life changes. Not only because she gets health, I thought she would get more attack damage or some similar changes around those base stats, but her damage per stack is now going up by 3 at level 1, which is huge, and then into 25, but we mostly care about the early value for passive. Renekton, damage going up by 15 and then 30. I don't think this really changes much, even though it's not been as present as before and not as obnoxious as before in the meta. I do believe that this is not going to change really that much. It's going to be a stale win rate position. Shen, slow and moving away from Shen, 15 to 25% initially, and you max his ability first and goes up by to 45 instead of 35%, and cooldown is going down by 2 seconds. And in my perspective, Shen was already in a good spot, even though they say is underperforming because of his potential win rate. However, Shen OTPs will love this change, and this is definitely more than 2% win rate increase for Shen. It's a huge buff, not only because of the slow and utility it provides, but having 2 less seconds in an ability that you don't want to max first when Shen doesn't build a lot of ability ace unless you go in a traditional support build. It's huge for Shen. So big change, 10% more slow, provides him a lot more pressure along with the changes that he has gotten throughout the season as well. Singe is going to be passive reverted, basically. This was a change that they've given before, so before it used to be 8, they increased to 10, and now they want it back to 8. Sona, her bolt damage is going to go up, not at the first value of ability, but after you go to level 3, level 5. And then if you're playing support Sona, you usually would put 3 points in Q and then transition. I think they're trying to make so that you want to max Q in some lanes where you don't really need that extra sustain or movement speed, and they want to make Sona more of a lane bully if she maxes Q around level 7, level 9. So if she's playing against a front line that doesn't really interact much or doesn't give too much pressure on top of Sona, I think that Q max build, instead of queuing into 5 and then switching max into another ability, I think this is the way that they're trying to hit Sona, especially because she's a really good enchanter but very, very niche. She cannot be picked in most scenarios. So let's see how this changes things up, because her E-Link is also going up by 5. But the biggest change is obviously the transition to level 7 and level 9 if she maxes this out. Syndra, slow is going down into 25% flat. This is huge. It goes from 45% to 25%. It doesn't even increase. It's a flat value. And her damage from her E is going down in the flat value, but going up in scaling. So they want to make Syndra less oppressive in laning phase, and they want to make her scaling better when it comes to her damage. However, you need you need a certain AP value threshold to make this a buff at some point. So when you get like Fire Torch, by the time you get one item of AP, you should be able to even this out. But the fact that you lose 20% slow when you used to spam Swifty's build plus Cosmic Drive and it would have a lot of movement speed, this is a big hit on Syndra regardless of these changes. Yes, she gains ZP percentage value, which means her scaling is going to be better, but Syndra really cares about being pro-efficient and aggressive in laning. So the fact that she loses a lot of power around that, it should make Syndra drop a lot of value. I don't think this is an adjustment. Let me see if they consider this an adjustment. It's not. It's a huge nerf, okay? So, yeah, Syndra is definitely nerfed. Yes, the AP buff in percentage, once again, it is fine, but it doesn't really even out on what you're losing in these scenarios. Tristana. Her damage is going to be obviously decreased finally, so Tristana has been a pain in the ass for a long time. Minus 50 damage at all levels, so basically they want it's minus 50 at level 6, level 11, and level 16. The reason why it's the same is because they want to nerf her early game. When she shifts into mid game, it will still be a nerf of 50 damage, but it's still not as reliable at level 6. Level 6, you won't be all in as before, so good change. Tristana is going to be less obnoxious. Xerath. Passive mana surge, cooldown reduction on kill is going up by 1 second. Really nice. I think it's really good. You can refund it really quickly if you can in some certain matchups. But the thing is about this passive, when you finish your last chapter, you don't even need to end your laning phase. When you build last chapter, you don't need this passive as much. You still need it sometimes, but you cannot hit it because you will play from a distance. You will not be able to proc that auto attack in mid game. Otherwise, you will be threatened. Otherwise, you will be killed. It's not possible. So I've heard Nemesis talking about this, and he said that they should put some sort of RFC effect where if you have the passive auto attack, you have a range increase, so you can utilize the passive more often. I do agree with that. I think it would be a nice quality of life change apart from this one, but Riot did not do it yet. Q damage is going up by 5 in each, and once again, Xerath has been buffed in the last patch for mid lane, has been nerfed for supports, so they want to shift a bit of its flat value initially, while maintaining the 90% AP for Xerath in quality of life changes. Zeri, chain lightning damage 25% total AD into 30% total AD will not change at all. I think Zeri will still be a little bit under the cover and will take some time to recover from her current absence. Yone is going to be nerfed. Yeah, so basically target max HP is going from 10% max HP into 8. A lot of loss, a big loss of damage in there, and keep in mind Yone was adjusted in the previous patch. So yeah. Yorick, monster damage taken is going to be increased by 40%, 10% more damage to monsters, melee damage change, damage is going to be 10% of target max HP, so they reverted this value as it was before. New monster damage cap is now going to be 50 plus 100% AP. New lane minimum damage 70, so let's see what they say. While last patch's Yorick update was largely successful at giving Yorick more access to his Mist Walkers and a fighting chance in the early lane, it also managed to significantly skew him toward the jungle where is really overperforming, that's true. This follow-up patch is intended to give us better jungle versus lane levels so that we can tune him for separate roles more effectively. We expect these changes to be somewhat powered down for jungle Yorick and mostly neutral for his top lane gameplay. I mean, yeah, Yorick is... It was very strong in early stages, even though his transition into scaling was a lot worse in comparison to before, but yeah, successful changes, but they need to be tweaked overall. Damage fall off to secondary targets is going to be removed, so basically I think it was 80% cleave damage, and now it's going to be 100%. So no restriction, this means you can wave clear by level 5, the backline minions really easy, and it's a good quality of life change because, yeah, I mean, if you reach level 9 at Hwei, Syndra, Oriana, those type of champions, they one-shot the wave. Zoe can only use and provide or Q damage when it comes to AoE, so it makes a lot of sense. It does make a difference when we're talking about, you know, poking from afar and hitting 2 or 3 champions at once. So I'm a bit scared of that, but Zoe is getting a huge buff, and I think this is more than a 2% increase, and her popularity will also be increased. Yuumi, E-Link is going down by 5, okay, initially, and then it goes back to the same value, so early game nerf for Yuumi. And once again, early game nerf for Yuumi, minus 15 at early stages, more vulnerable. I don't think Yuumi, even though she has had her win rate increase recently, I don't think it really matters. Yuumi will still be in a really shy spot, for sure. Cryptbloom plus 5 ability haste, I mean, sure, champions that want to build Cryptbloom because of ability haste is a really nice change, plus 5 ability haste. But if you're playing against a composition that you're you're playing against a lot of magic resistance and you really want the Void Staff, I mean, yeah, you still go for Void Staff, obviously. Depends if you are able to utilize the Void Staff value too well, or if you're a champion that wants to do the ability haste transition by having less percentage magic penetration in comparison to Void Staff. So resist going down by 10%. I mean, yeah, some champions have been utilizing this really well. So they want to reduce this by 10% efficiency, and opportunity is going up by 3 lethality, and after being out of combat with enemy champions for 8 seconds, gain 11 melee and 7 ranged. For 8 seconds, gain 11 melee. Oh, so they want to nerf for ranged users. Okay. Makes sense. Melee users will be the same. I mean, it will actually be buffed because of the 3 lethality. And for ranged users, it will be even. It will be evened out because you will lose 3, you know? I mean, you will lose 2, I'm sorry. But you will gain 3. So overall, a buff for every user, but when it comes to melee, it will be a bigger buff than the ranged users. Overlord's Bloodmail has been fine, but not exceptionally powerful for most of its lifetime. We're looking to buff it in a position where it's clearly better than some items. I mean, yeah, considering the HP meta has been more popular, I was expecting it to be more popular, but the values weren't that appealing. So they want to increase to 2.5% instead of 2%. And retribution is going up into 12% instead of 10. Might make it more popular in some cases, and yeah. Then we have some ARAM arena changes, and let's see if there's any type of skin line bug fixes. And we have Sun Nuzal, Victorious Suicide Fate, Fatebreaker Tarek. Really cool skins, okay, but let's look into the TLDR. Let's make a really quick run through about the patch. Ahri, basically, Malignance, Blackfire Torch, buff Rod of Ages nerf because they want to buff her scaling and weaken her base stats. Any is going to be a lot more bursty, or DPS from Tibers is going to be decreased, but a lot more burst will be given into her Q, W, and also magic penetration percentage from her ultimate passive. Blitzcrank, nice buff. I mean, it's not really that big, but it will be a nice change for early game aggressiveness because of the shield and the damage. Brand possibly 1% win rate as well because he's going to be back-to-back buffed. Gwen, really nice change. It touches her early laning phase, which weakens how obnoxious she was in the reset changes, and they want to tune her down. This is a good step in the right direction. It weakens her by 4 early stages, which is really nice. Hwei, late game buffs because it's going to go up by 50 damage in his passive. His passive that it can always spam a lot, while his ultimate damage will also be increased by level 11 and level 16. Nice late game buffs for Hwei instead of early game, when early game is actually his best state when transitioning to mid game as well. Lulu, 1% win rate loss, they want to decrease by 30 HP. Mel, they want to increase by 30 HP, increase 1% or 1.5% because of quality of life changes, with her early game passive quality of life being also buffed. Renekton, not going to change anything. Shen, huge buff, I would say 2% more win rates at least for Shen. I think this is going to be hot fixed. Possibly not, but it will be a big change. 35% into 45% and minus 2 seconds in an ability you don't really max at all. Synergy is going to be reverted. Sona, you might max Q at level 9 into free matchups where you want to poke and harass more. Syndra, I disagree with Riot. This is not an adjustment. This is a huge nerf. She loses 20% slow, and she's going to have a lot more AP scalings for sure. But her early game is significantly nerfed in comparison to the past patch. So while it's an adjustment, it's more of a nerf than it is a buff because you really care about Syndra being obnoxious in early stages, which is why you also pick her alongside with her scaling values. Tristana, early game nerf. They want her to be less bursty when it comes to early transitions into level 6. I mean, makes sense. 265 damage in ulti is huge damage when you consider that her explosion damage from E is also taken into accountability. Passive, Xerath going up by 1 and is going to be buffed by 5. Remember, Xerath has been buffed to mid lane the previous patch, nerfed to support, so back-to-back buffs for mid lane Xerath. Is going to be in a good spot as an artillery mage when his angle should be good. Zeri doesn't really change anything at all. This is a huge, not a huge nerf, but a considerable nerf for Yone's damage in his W. Is going to go down by 2% max HP. Yorick is going to be weakened in jungle because of how strong he was due to these early game changes. Now they want to make it even for top and nerfed for jungle Yorick. And now its ultimate only affects champions as well. Okay, Zoe, big buff. I would say Zoe is going to be one of the biggest winners of the patch and one of the upcoming most popular champions from these changes that we're seeing. So really nice. I'm a Zoe enthusiast as well, so it's going to feel good because of her wave clear quality of life changes. And I'm a bit afraid of mid-game transition because now she can potentially burst 2 to 3 champions instead of having her secondary targets weakened as she used to have. Early game nerf for Yuumi doesn't... I mean, it does hurt, but it doesn't do much. Yuumi wasn't showing as much either way. Ability est for Cryptbloom. Cryptbloom users are going to enjoy this, but you still need to do Void stuff in a lot of games. Deadman Split is going to have utility nerfed by 10% when it comes to slow resistance. Lethality overall a buff, plus 3 for melees and plus 1 for ranged users because of the loss by 2. And Overlord's Bloodmail is going to be 2.5 instead of 2%, and 0 to 10 into 0 to 12. And that's it for the patch. I think the biggest winners are definitely Zoe. Xerath is one of the winners, I would say. Syndra is the biggest loser of the patch in my perspective. Sona, this could be good for increase her popularity in some draft, but she's still really niche. Shen, one of the biggest winners of the patch alongside Zoe. Renekton doesn't really matter. Mel will be definitely more popular. Hwei, one of the big winners as well. Brent, nice change. Blitz, nice change. I wouldn't really say much. And Annie is going to show up more often. Will be a lot more burstier. So, yeah. I'm a bit scared of this though, because you can do Malignance or Blackfire Torch and deal a shit ton of damage because of her AP scalings being increased. So, yeah. That is going to be it for the patch 25.08. Remember that the next patch is going to be the reset, not your rank progression, but rewards are going to be refreshed. So it's going to be Split 2 coming up. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next 2 weeks once again.